Guys, welcome back. I've got Henry Torano on with me today. He's calling in from Puerto Rico. And what I'm super curious about with Henry is I love the way that he coaches. He's no bullshit. He's got a great sense of humor. And he tells you like he sees it. So, Henry, I just want to open up the conversation by asking you sort of a different question that I've asked other coaches. How did you come to that personality and coaching style of kind of being like the no bullshit guy?
Man, I mean, that's actually a pretty simple answer, and I don't think it's what you expect. It's just the way I'm built. I think I'm like that in every single aspect of my life. Like I don't rephrase the question. Don't dress up the problem. Like, what do I got to do, or how do we fix it? That's just me, and I see that bleed through in all aspects of my life. I'm constantly getting asked if I have a military background, and I know it's not only the haircut, but I think that that's something I just bleed.
So let's take that now and say, how do you uniquely help your clients? If you had to sort of describe your coaching style, what would you describe it as?
I think for the most part, I can relate with the vast majority of clients that come in because I've had such a varied background in what I've done and what fitness has meant to me since I was a little boy, really. I played all sports growing up, but I also trained, or I felt like I needed to train. Like after practice, I just did push-ups and sit-ups, and we're talking like 20 total because I was 7 and would get tired immediately. But I knew that I have to do something to get strong and to get better. So I kind of carried that out with me throughout all of my life, even when I didn't understand training or was just picking stuff up from magazines. But I knew that physical preparedness carried over to sports. So I have that, and then sports were a big part of my background competitively. I played some football. Was in a Division I AA team. Played some semi-pro ball here locally. Then eventually went into endurance sports. Started with cycling, then into triathlon, and eventually CrossFit. And now I'm just at a spot where what does fitness means when there's no competition? And with that little last minute of I don't know of banter, I think I've covered what most of my clients bring to the table, or the questions that they're asking, or where they're at. So, I know for the most part what you're feeling. I know what it's like to go from one to the other. I know how it feels to do, X piece in training because I've really done it.
So how does that understanding of what they're going through, how does that translate into being able to help them more effectively?
So as a piece of conversation, for one, I think it's, huge when not only, as a coach, you say like, yeah, I know what you're saying, but when you can describe it and you can, the person knows that you're genuinely understanding and, how they're feeling and where they're coming from with their arguments or what they're experiencing. And as we know, that connection is just huge between coach and client. So being able to emphasize a little better.
If you were to say what you learned in football, what you learned in, let's call it cyclical, so cycling or triathlon, what did you learn in those two sports that carried over into either broad fitness or CrossFit?
I think it was no coincidence that I fell in love with football out of all the sports. And I played all of them, but football was sacred. Like, that's the one that could never, like, I'm definitely doing football season. And again, it just goes back to, my essence and the amount of discipline, that it takes to play football because of the amount of plays, because of the amount of people that are in there with you, because of the amount of practices, and the amount of effort really that's into each of those games, because it's not just effort, it's physical abuse really, that you're taking, and, being able to just, adhere to that and realize how big it is, and, how it's not only for you, it's for the rest of the team, and how much everybody depends on you. I think that just carried over into everything else where, when I'm focused on any one of those sports or in my training, like I know how to be fully aligned and 100% into it.
Could you put your hand on a moment or a series of moments that led you to know that you wanted to be strong or disciplined? And I'll give you a couple extra seconds to think about that, because it's a big question. For me, I feel the same way. I feel like strong is not it, right? Maybe for me it's aerobic, but certainly on the discipline side, as long as I can possibly remember, I felt a need to be disciplined in the things that I want to succeed in. So much so that it just seems different than most other people. Can you point to maybe what led you to feel that way, or has it just been like a birth thing for you?
I can't remember the precise moment when it happens, but I know that I've been feeling this for as long as I can remember, where I just cannot live with myself if I fail and I recognize that I didn't do everything within my reach. And it's just that I can't handle the feeling of feeling disappointed with myself.
So is it more about your understanding about how you attempted to compete, or the outcome of that competition?
The outcome, of course, is huge. I mean, if you go out and make some mistakes but you're still winning, I mean, you always have that. But, only each individual athlete or each individual, whatever role, everybody knows if you've done all you can. And it may appear that you have, or you may say that you have, but deep down, it's really, only you know. Did you really give it your all? And, that I just constantly ask myself that. And, I kind of set priorities or discard things that I thought were priorities when I asked myself that question and realized, did I do everything that I could? Do I want to do everything that I could to make it happen? And, again, I did have these reflections when I was a kid. I just can't remember how or when it started.
I'm with you on that one. I can't place a finger on it either, but it's just there. I know when I was coaching as well, that helped me a lot to connect to people who were sort of at that point where they're like, do I really want to go for it? And let's just say it's going for it in the sense of becoming a high level CrossFitter. That's a difficult question to answer at your soul level, because of the amount of pain you've got to go through, the amount of time you've got to spend doing it. Tell me about how you help people get comfortable with a big decision like that. So how do you help somebody understand what it really takes to give it their all, and then help them consistently get there?
Yeah, and again, I think this goes way further than just fitness or a squat or competition or whatever. And it's kind of the same reasoning. You know the real truth behind each one of your actions, and if you be afraid or hesitant to act on it, and maybe it's maybe it's that you need more confidence to really know. But once you know. And then when you decide, or when you realize, like, yeah, this is what I want, or this is what I'm doing, everything else is easy. There's no sacrifices. You don't give anything up, because, that's your all. And again, this can be a particular weight in the snatch of whatever time on a triathlon, or something that you decide to do for your kids or your job or your career or whatever. It really applies to anything.
Gosh, I think you're so right on that. And it makes so much sense why you opened up the conversation essentially by saying it's just who I am. I know so many people who don't have the awareness around if they've given it their all, but if a guy like you can come in and say, what's really happening? No, that's bullshit. And you know it, this is what's real. And then all of a sudden they can build that awareness of saying, did I actually go for it or not? It's a complete game changer for an athlete. That level of awareness in themselves, whether they've actually gone for it or not. So do me a favor, take us through a couple of minutes here on how you went from CrossFit Athlete to CrossFit Coach, because you own a gym. It's, you've done a lot of awesome things in your gym. You're coaching online, so you've been in this game for a long time. How do you compare and contrast being an athlete versus being a coach?
Man, yeah, I guess, as an athlete, you need to be a lot more selfish. It's about it's really all about you and, what I can do to be better. Now, even if it's in a team setting, the athlete is still thinking about himself. Like, what can I do to be a better teammate? That's still a legitimate question about how to improve yourself. As a coach, you kind of step way outside of that and you're figuring out what can I do to make other people better. I think that's the main difference there, and what inevitably leads athlete coaches to either give up on coaching or realize that, yeah, I'm not going to be an athlete anymore because now I'm coaching.
Well said. I think you're so right on that. Did you feel like you had to consciously make that transition, or did it come fairly naturally?
It was happening. And of course, there's a lot of different factors there that, kind of kept me numb or allowed me to not think about it for a little while, because, at first there's time. You can coach people. You can be a coach and still be an athlete, but the more you coach, then the more you need to give up a little bit of the athlete. Of course, it helps when you're like, I'm just going to grind for a little bit because I'll just take these clients and you're making a few extra bucks. So that's always an incentive. But the truth of the matter is I struggled with it when it was time to let go of one or the other. It took me a while to come to terms with it and say like, okay, I'm not going to compete. And, it's hard truths that you face, but it's really when performance is not there and you know exactly why, and goes back to, I know I didn't put in the work, or I know I need to put in, the lifestyle pieces in place to make it happen. I'm just not willing to because, I need to write this program, or I need to write this, food profile or whatever it is, instead of going to sleep or, getting the recovery boots or doing whatever, fill in the blank.
I think that's.
But I gotta say, I did struggle with it.
Sorry, go ahead, Henry.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough to finally, be honest with myself about it and say like, yeah, this is what's happening. I'm ready to let go of this one role or one part of me to, be able to more fully embrace the other.
I've had a lot of great conversations with other Big Dogs coaches this week, and you guys are saying very similar things when it comes to alignment and priorities and awareness. And I could see what you just had a conversation around, you moving past being an athlete and put any myriad of different roles in that, so maybe somebody feels like an athlete and then they want to go work in the corporate world, or they want to have a family, or they want to get married, or they want, ABC 1, 2, 3. It's the same conversation that so many people will inevitably have with themselves at some point. And I think there's truly a process to that. There's so many athletes that become lost because all of a sudden competition's over one day and they've not really thought about what to do next. But the other thing that all the Big Dogs coaches have said so elegantly is that it's not so much about only the outcome. It's about the daily process of enjoying a fitness journey, right? So you and I, okay, we're not competing in CrossFit anymore, but like, I love going down to the gym and training and exploring, getting better at things and enjoying going out for a run and stuff. But a lot of people struggle to make that transition. So I think you said that really, really well. Next question I've got for you. What are all the shoes behind you?
That's a part of my sneaker collection.
Part of it.
Yeah, so I just recently moved, and I used to have a full room like that, just all three walls covered in sneakers. But now we're in a smaller house, or not a smaller house, but it has fewer rooms. So I had to do a hybrid sneaker room and office. Yeah, it was a tough choice. I may have cried more than once, but I made the call and kept these here and have something like that, more or less. That's about half the collection in storage.
Oh, that's awesome. And I could just see you now just talking about the discipline conversation. It's like, I know I got to do it. I don't want to do it, but I know I got to do it.
Yep.
Awesome, man. So let me ask the same question I've been asking to the coaches at the end here is, what are you most fascinated with exploring in fitness right now?
Oh, hands down, it's that last piece you just mentioned. The process. Because I get that all the time when people are finally starting to figure their shit out and align with the things that are really important to them. And, they ask, how do you stay, motivated is the biggest word. How do you find the motivation to keep doing it every day? And, I understand the question, or I'm not foreign to the question, but I am foreign to the feeling. Because I know when I wake up every day that I'm going to brush my teeth, that I'm going to, shower, that I'm going to eat at some point, and that I'm going to work out. There's just no life for me where that doesn't happen, regardless of what I'm doing. And of course, like I said before, it was tough to change the driving factor behind it. And, when I'm grinding in a workout thinking of X event versus when I'm grinding in the workout thinking of, I just want to be strong and healthy when I'm old, it's different to put yourself in that point. But, I'm fascinated by that transition into you just work out because you want to work out.
Yeah, it's just, like James says, fitness is breakfast, right? And it's easy for us to say, and it's easy for people to look at you and me being in the fitness world and say, oh, well, of course, those guys just love to train every day. But I see so many people who, when they can kind of go internal for a little bit and realize that it really wasn't about the outcome of the competition. I know for me specifically, whether it was tennis or CrossFit, frankly, what I liked the most was learning about either myself or movement or understanding the game or the angles and stuff like that. So what I love to do in my own fitness is to understand how I'm going to improve towards where I want to go. So I like going down to the gym and, if it's running, which is a big part of focus for me right now, I love to just get out there and just shut everything off and just run. But if I was in CrossFit, it took me a long time to recognize that it wasn't about the outcome. It was about learning about myself. And that's a big conversation for people to have, I think. But it's a really good one. Well, Henry, thanks so much, man. I appreciate you coming on. I'm really excited to talk to you about more specific topics. I got a bunch of them in my mind, so we'll have to do that at another time. But I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right.